Hey guys, so you might be wondering what I'm doing right now, not on a Monday. But here's the thing, so over the weekend I realized that a lot of the things I'm planning to do this week are based around movies, and I'm actually going to see a lot of movies this week. So I thought, why not talk about these movies here in front of you guys, so you guys can have an idea of what movies I liked, what movies maybe you would like, and what movies may be the best films of the year. Most of the films I will be talking about, except for maybe one film, came out this year, and they are some of the most anticipated films of the year. Most of them are supposed to be really good, so I'm excited to see all of them, and some may have come out a few months ago, some a few weeks ago, some 2 weeks from now. So it'll be a variety, but they're all from this year. And if you saw from my last video, the first thing I'm going to review today is The Theory of Everything. The Theory of Everything is a film about the love story between Stephen Hawking and Jane Wilde. It stars Eddie Redmayne, who you might be familiar with from Les Miserables, and Felicity Jones, who had a very interesting film a few years ago in Like Crazy. The rest of the supporting cast is rounded up by Charlie Cox, who you might be familiar with as the lead of Stardust, and will be playing Daredevil next year in the new TV show. Emily Watson, who is the mom in the Book Thief adaptation this year, and who is also famously the love interest of Adam Sandler in the amazing Punch Drunk Love by P.T. Anderson. And David Thewlis, who you guys might be familiar with as Lupin from the Harry Potter series. The film is directed by James Marsh, who is more popular for his documentaries, and a few years ago he even won the Oscar for Best Documentary Film with Man of Wire. It was scored by Johan Johansson, who did Prisoners last year, and the cinematographer was Benoit Delhomme, who's done a lot of very interesting films in his career, from the early films of Tran Han Hung, the Vietnamese director, to Taiwanese new wave director Tsai Ming Liang in What Time Is It There, to even The Boy in the Striped Pajamas just a few years ago. Anyway, so The Theory of Everything. In discussing stories, it's very important to realize from whose perspective it is being told, as this lets us uncover the different biases and subjectivity that are common to all forms of media and communication and story. The Theory of Everything is based on a novel written by Jane Hawking, who was the wife of Stephen Hawking, who is played by Felicity Jones in the film. The film sidesteps a lot of the physics explanations that made Stephen Hawking very popular, and focuses more on the love story between the two leads, which is also the focus of the novel it's based off. However, for me, I thought that their falling in out of love wasn't very believable. And the most involving parts of the film were those that involved the minor characters, such as David Thewlis's character and Charlie Cox's character. For me, there wasn't any scene in the film's first half that led me to care enough about the relationship, to the point that I would believe that Jane would be willing to marry someone who has just been given a death sentence of 2 years. Of course, this was true when it happened in real life, but the way it was presented in the film made the overflowing love of Jane more of like a given attribute of hers, as opposed to something earned from the relationship. Which was kind of ironic, because I felt that the side story between Felicity Jones and Charlie Cox was better and more well developed than the actual main romance between the two leads. And there are a lot of very interesting things in the film that are brought up but are never really dealt with properly. For example, there are a lot of very interesting comments about religion and God that are brought up once in a while. In fact, one of the first few scenes of the film show Stephen Hawking meeting Jane, and Stephen saying that he's an atheist and Jane says she's from the Church of England. And throughout the film, Jane always checks on Stephen to see if his theories match up with the idea of a god. There are more references in the second half of the film when Jane meets Charlie Cox and decides to join his church choir. However, the effect on their relationship isn't very clear and well developed throughout. And I didn't think that it was fully developed enough to the point that at the very end of the film, when it is alluded to again, we would feel some emotional connection to it, and that it would make a very significant impact. And the same goes for the children of Stephen, who are shown in a very small handful of scenes, maybe 5 or 6 scenes in the film, and suddenly they appear again at the very end as if we are supposed to care for them, even though we hardly see them in the film. So overall, I thought the film was okay. In some ways, it reminded me of the Marilyn Monroe biopic a few years ago that also happened to star Eddie Redmayne, called My Week with Marilyn, where Marilyn Monroe is played by Michelle Williams. I thought they were similar in that they both focus on a romance that's not very well known in the bigger scope of the subject's life, but is essential in uncovering more about the figure, learning more about how they are as human beings. What most clearly distinguishes the two films is that what makes the romance in My Week of Marilyn work is that it focuses on this 1 week long rendezvous romance, while The Theory of Everything tries to compress around 20 years of their lives into a 2-hour film. And it really hurts the story that it's trying to tell. One thing to ask when seeing a movie is, why was this made? The Theory of Everything had a lot of potential to shed light on a popular figure that we may not necessarily know personally, but I think in that sense it fails because it tries to tell too much in such a short period of time that it never really necessarily gets into depth with any particular situation, making the film feel more like a very long exposition about Stephen Hawking's life, as opposed to shedding light on a new perspective that we may be able to learn from him. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a bad movie by any means. It's pretty well made. There are definitely some scenes in the film that I don't want to spoil, but probably rank as some of the most beautiful scenes filmed this whole year. And the dialogue between the principal characters is very engaging, very witty and funny, especially in the first half of the film. And the performances throughout, especially Eddie Redmayne's and Felicity Jones and the rest of the supporting cast, are all pretty great considering what they were given to work with the script. Eddie Redmayne was particularly engaging the first half of the film when he plays the charismatic Stephen Hawking, up to the post-motor neuron disease Stephen Hawking, where he really just gives possibly the performance of the year. And the musical score that plays intermittently throughout the film is really wondrous, and it adds a lot of mood to the film, but at times I do thought that it was a little bit overdone in some parts. However, the characters, such as Felicity Jones's character, did not feel very well developed throughout the film, and the film is often pretty forgettable, so overly sugar-coated, and exceedingly safe, in that it doesn't bring anything new to the form of film, nor does it bring anything new to the insight on the life of Stephen Hawking. So yeah, that's what I thought of The Theory of Everything. So really random trivia. This isn't actually the first time Stephen Hawking was portrayed in film, and the first time was actually 10 years ago, and he was played by Benedict Cumberbatch, which is actually pretty cool. But that isn't the random trivia. So the random trivia is that the two films have this very weird link. There was an actor who was featured in both films, and his name's Adam Godley. In 2004, he played the dad of Stephen Hawking, and in this film, he plays one of the doctors. And the name Adam Godley may not sound familiar to you, and it did not sound familiar to me when I first heard it, but then you might be familiar with him as Elliot Schwartz in Breaking Bad, the former co-founder of Grey Matter Technology with Walter White. And I just realized that you guys don't watch Breaking Bad. Anyway, if any of you are more interested in Stephen Hawking, I'd recommend probably seeing the 2013 documentary that came out last year, and maybe even the 2004 Benedict Cumberbatch UK television movie that came out 10 years ago. So yeah, that's it. That's what I thought about The Theory of Everything, and I will see you guys in the next video.